Good afternoon. This is the October 16th, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment regular meeting. My name is Matt Perry and I'm chair of this board. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum.
Board Member Callahan, present. Eicholtz.
Here.
Granz Korsch.
Here.
Hutchins.
Present.
Ingram.
Aye.
Perry.
Here.
Smikarova.
Aye.
Wang.
Here.
We have 8 members present.
We do have quorum. Thank you. With that, we'll proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? That motion passes and we have an approved agenda. I believe all the board members have seen a copy of the minutes from the September 18th, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, we have two abstentions, and that motion, three. Yep, that motion passes. And the minutes of the Zoning Board of Adjustment September 18th, 2025 meeting are approved. Okay. Reminder to applicants and others, if you're going to speak at the public hearing, please sign in on the sheet available from the clerk and speak clearly into the microphone. If you have not signed in, you can do so on your way out. Also to applicants and others, please contact staff after the hearing with any questions regarding your projects. Let's review the agenda. I will read the agenda number and the address of this project and state whether it's slated for consent, continuance, withdrawal, return, or discussion. I'll talk a little bit about what discussion items are. These are items for which the board will take public testimony, deliberate on, and make a decision. After the public testimony has been heard for each particular discussion item, I will close the public hearing for that agenda item. Once I close the public hearing for an item, no additional public testimony will be taken, but staff may be asked to address board questions. After the public hearing for an item is closed, board members will then discuss and act on motions, and the chair does not vote except in the case of a tie. So let's see what the recommended disposition of the items are. Agenda item number 4 is 64 Orland Avenue Southeast. Staff is recommending this item for consent. Is there anyone here to speak against this item? I see no one. Agenda item number 5 is 1118 53rd Street West. Staff is recommending this item for consent. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this item? I see no one. And agenda item number 6 is 2821 Brookwood Terrace. This is a discussion item. So let's review the items for consent. They're 4 and 5. I am going to open the public hearing, and would anybody like to talk about any of those items? These are agenda items number 4 and 5. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt these items on consent?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? That motion passes. So if you were here for agenda items number 4 or 5, your land use requests are approved. Good luck with your projects, and thanks for coming down. Okay, let's move to agenda item number 6. This is 2821 Brookwood Terrace. Who is Mr. Campbell?
Good evening, members of the board. Just pull up my presentation here. Thank you very much. So as mentioned, we are discussing a pair of variance requests regarding property located at 2821 Brookwood Terrace, PLAN 20266. This is a property located just north of Minnehaha Creek. The property is zoned UN1 Urban Neighborhood 1 and is in the BFI1 Interior 1 Built Form Overlay District. This also falls under the Shoreland Overlay District for Minnehaha Creek. Again, there are two requests before you tonight for review. One is to reduce the minimum required interior side yard from 5 feet to 3.1 feet for a home addition. And then for that same home addition to allow development within 40 feet of the top of a steep slope in the Shoreland Overlay District. So again, just to get a bit of an idea of the existing conditions, this is a zoomed-in version of the survey that was submitted by the applicant looking specifically at the rear of the lot. So the home on the lot has a rear attached garage. That access is coming off of Brookwood, since directly to the south of this is park board land and the creek itself. So that street access comes from the north side of the property and then wraps around the building to the side-facing garage. You can see there in the image the existing garage. That highlighted area in yellow is the area of the existing garage. It's 18 by 22 feet. It does have a second level above it, so essentially there's a roof deck on that garage where there is a enclosed sunroom closer to the home itself, and then a open roof deck. One thing to note, and it's harder to see on this survey image, but we'll talk a bit more about the steep slope, is you can see in terms of the topography around the garage, it's relatively flat in that area, and it probably was deliberately flattened back when the home was built in 1927, just to provide a building area, a rear yard space. You can see on the very bottom of this image a existing retaining wall, and that's really where the lot does steeply drop off towards the creek itself. You can see here in the image on the bottom left, that's looking out towards the rear of the lot, basically. So again, wooded area kind of drops off after that retaining wall. This is the interior floor plans for the existing garage, as well as that, again, sunroom and deck above. Then you can see where it connects off to the lower level and the kitchen itself. In terms of the proposal from the applicants, they are looking to add on to that rear, expand the garage, as well as some interior living space above. So again, in yellow is the existing, that 18 by 22. Here it's bumping out to be a little bit deeper at 23 feet, and then adding roughly 10 feet for the actual garage itself, so it would be 28 by 23, as well as 8 feet for a, you can see there it's labeled as balcony, but again, new steps down towards the backyard. So again, if we exclude kind of the existing stairway that's off of the rear of that garage today, and we're looking just at that face of the garage, this would be getting 18 feet further into the lot, further towards the rear of the property. 10 of that would be actual enclosed building, and 8 feet of that would be the new deck and stairs. Again, here's that proposed interior floor plan. So the left is the lower levels. You can see, again, the existing kind of footprint of the garage today, whereas they're increasing the size. The applicant noted that the garage today is in rougher shape. The garage was original to the home, although I think it's been updated and maintained since then. Right now at 18 feet probably is not, would be tight for two cars, at least in modern vehicles. The new garage would be 28 feet in width, which is certainly on probably the wider side for a two-car garage. Partly that's due to having a exterior door off of the face there, so needing the actual room for that entryway. And then again, on the top level, or the main level here, you can see the what had been the sunroom is now pushing out slightly to be an enclosed family room. That's going to be fully four-season habitable living space for the home itself. And then there's a screen porch closer towards the back of the lot itself. So again, one of the items that we're looking at today is that this is within 40 feet of a steep slope within the Shoreland Overlay District. I provided here the definition for a steep slope as it's calculated in the code. So land having an average slope of 18% or greater measured over a horizontal distance of 50 feet or more. Slopes that are less than 10 feet in height shall not be considered a steep slope. So the applicant's materials actually had included, I think on the existing survey, it showed a 40-foot setback just south of where the existing garage ended. And that is roughly similar to where you can actually see with item B here. And to explain a little bit of this graphic, the red lines are 50-foot runs of horizontal distance. And you can see on the left here for that A, B, C, and D, we've included the percent change over those. So again, 40 feet back from that retaining wall is roughly where that existing garage sits today. But staff will note that even though the lot and the yard levels out once it's past that retaining wall, it's actually still considered a steep slope in the top of that contour due to how drastically sloped it is beneath that retaining wall. And again, this is meant mostly for illustrative purposes. That line kind of dashed is showing where if we applied that 40-foot setback from the top of a steep slope contour, how far that would reach into the actual lot itself. So well into where the existing garage is today, and obviously well into where the addition is proposed. There are a lot of staff findings to cover here, and I think the staff report went into a lot greater detail. I'm happy to kind of take individual questions on any of the findings being recommended by staff in this case. I do have a couple that I would like to highlight. One specifically being that right now we are recommending denial of the interior side yard variance. One thing to note is that the existing home is already at the closest point on the front end, 2.9 feet from the property line, slightly being askew and ending up at 3.1 feet for where the garage and where the addition would be. Generally speaking, staff does not see a unique circumstance that would prohibit the homeowner from just shifting that in 2 additional feet. 5 feet would be the setback in this case. And again, there's, in this case, a lot of space with that existing driveway to shift the addition and shift the entire kind of remodel in and meet that code-required setback. In terms of some of the other findings, so again, here we have a couple of findings that are common for all variances. We have a few that are specific to those in the Shoreland Overlay District. And then finally, the last 4 are findings specific to steep slope variances in the Shoreland Overlay District. One thing staff does want to note in terms of the unique circumstances for that second variance in terms of development is that, again, when we look at where in the lot is considered to be within 40 feet of a steep slope, almost the entire rear yard as it exists and even up to kind of the building itself today is considered to be within the steep slope, and that really leaves very little area on the lot that you could do sort of a by right development. And that's kind of doubly created when you now have front yard setbacks. There's not really an ability to push this any closer to the street as it lies today. Really the only areas that maybe would be outside of that steep slope area are truly just kind of in that corner where the driveway curves. That all combining to really be a circumstance here that we feel is unique to the property itself. The other thing I'll note here is while there is definitely steep slopes present, especially in that southern portion of the lot, the addition itself would be at its closest point of kind of the footings of that deck and stair area, still more than 20 feet away from the retaining wall itself, still well on kind of the flatter, more even level of the ground. And that's, again, the deck itself rather than the actual structure itself. Finally, one other thing that we do talk about, you can see it in a couple of these, of limiting the visibility of structures from the water is common for all variances in shoreland overlay, but also seeing that there is development still in the area that is visible from public right of, or from the public water, and that the view from the public water is consistent with surrounding properties and the surrounding natural area. Staff generally feels this is met. Again, there is a pretty significant tree line between this property and the creek itself. You can get an idea from, again, that image. This is obviously seasonal, right? As we move into winter, those trees are going to shed their leaves, and it's going to be a bit more visible from the river, or the creek, excuse me. But that being said, staff does not feel that this addition would be more visible or a really marked change from what is already visible today over the winter. And again, I think we've already kind of hit on these, but generally speaking, development along the creek in this portion of the city has been present. Again, this is a 1927 home. There are many other homes from that same era. It isn't necessarily out of character with the local area to have kind of residential development, so long as it is being kind of mindful of those steep slopes, mindful of erosion control best practices, what is a condition that we're recommending for this variance. That is what we have in terms of staff's recommending findings. One thing I did want to note is we did receive a request for continuance on this item prior to the board meeting. There was a misunderstanding from one of the affected property owners on what the timeline was for notifications to those adjacent properties. The misunderstanding came from a document that the city has on its website that's a land use process guide that generalized the timelines and the deadlines for sending out notifications as 21 days, whereas 15 days is the requirement for affected property owners. What I'll just note is that this mailer was sent out 17 days in advance of this meeting, and that's why staff is not recommending that this item is continued and that we hold the vote today just in sort of timeliness for the applicant. But obviously, that is really the board's purview. You all are the group that could vote, again, to continue this another meeting.
Is the person who is in favor of the continuance present? So what we'll do is have the applicant present their case, and then we'll have you present your reason for a continuance. And then we'll close the public hearing, and the board is the only body that really gets to vote on whether there is a continuance or not.
And might I be able to speak about the project other than the continuance?
Sure, you have limited,
I kind of quickly put everything together because,
you have limited time.
well, yeah, okay, all right.
Okay,
I'll be able to
great.
talk about the continuance, right?
We usually limit the time to 2 minutes.
Okay, to the continuance.
Yep. Okay, just wanted to clear the air before we went to our next step. So are there any questions of staff? Yes.
I just wanted to dig into the prevention of soil erosion and how it is met. I'm just curious about that, but what specific traits does city staff look for to determine that it is met?
So in this case, one of the conditions of the approval will be that a erosion control management plan is submitted as part of the building permit. And that is going to mostly focus on more of the kind of best management practices. So silt fencing, identifying areas where there is going to be digging happening for footings, things like that. And that gets reviewed both by city staff, but also our construction code services team.
Thank you.
Yes.
First off, thanks for the really detailed presentation. I really appreciated the color coding and everything. It really helped me. I'm very curious about your one comment here, though, because it doesn't make sense to me. You talked about the existing tree line, and there's a 24-foot oak that's on the property, right? And if the proposed distance would be left at 5 feet, it's even questionable whether that would make it. But that tree's not going to make it if the variance is allowed. So
Chair,
how come you're saying it's not going to be touched? I don't understand.
Chair Barry, Council Member, or Board Member Grants Corch, the tree line I'm referring to is at the rear of the lot towards the actual creek. So there is, visible right here, a mature oak tree adjacent to the existing garage on that property line. I do think there is probably even with just the demolition of that structure, there's risk for that tree to be damaged. In terms of how the Shoreland Overlay Code handles removal of vegetation, there's a couple different kind of factors. A lot of the times it's focused on vegetation that is serving a role in soil retention. So that's where staff's focusing a lot on those trees and vegetation on the actual slope down towards the creek itself, which are, again, not, the construction is going to be fully to the north of that retaining wall.
Okay, and one other quick question on the driveway, the existing driveway. Are you showing the existing driveway, or is it going to be expanded to accommodate the new garage?
I believe the garage was shown here. The driveway shown here is the proposed location, because you can
Okay.
see here on the existing, again, that
So that little line that's showing,
right would probably, I think that is probably the existing.
and does that meet, because it is such a large impervious piece of the property, does that meet our regulations on that? Because now it's almost 40% bigger?
Right. Staff did review the floor plans and kind of calced out for both impervious surface and lot coverage, which is structure specific. Both of those are within the allowances for that interior one district. And then in terms of interior floor area, this is also a conforming structure in terms of that maximum floor area ratio that we talk about in the code. So in this case, the only two variances being sought are the side yard and the development within 40 feet of the steep slope.
Yes, Mr. Hutchins.
Thanks, Chair Barry. Thanks for your presentation. Super well done. I just want to make sure I'm getting my mind around what we're looking at. The bulk of the addition is not in contention at all, completely within code, correct?
Correct, in terms of the floor area, things like that,
Yep.
yes.
And then the only thing where the city's hung up on is it not being in line with the existing structure. The solution, quote unquote, would be to shift the entire addition 2 feet further into the lot, correct?
Chair Barry, Board Member Hutchins, that's generally correct. I guess there are two kind of considerations on the city's end. One is definitely that kind of side facade and the extension of that facade at that 3.1 feet rather than 5 feet. The other is just, again, that this is development within 40 feet of the top of the steep slope.
And then the last question I have is, looking at the pictures and looking at the plans, it looks like if you did shift it 2 feet into the lot and maintain the same size, you would lose that, I think we're calling that the first floor window. Would it encroach into the window and lose that window?
It potentially could, and that is something that staff had looked at. We typically, for something like this where the site plan and the building permit review is going to follow the variance, right now, in the way that the code is structured, our window requirements are not variable. I'm not sure if losing that one window would put this under the, I believe it's 5% window coverage for that kind of ground level area. But if that were the case, they then would have to make it up, probably with a window now on like the garage side.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I see none. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. We may have you up again. So let's open the public hearing. Are the applicants present, and would they like to speak?
Yes.
If you could give your name and address for the record, I would appreciate it. And applicants get about 10 minutes to make their case, and be aware that we have read your material that you have submitted.
Correct, thank you. My name is Mike Eckert. I'm an architect. My company is Arcos Architecture and Design from St. Paul, 1039 Nebraska Avenue West.
Thank you.
I would like to sort of comment on some of the questions that were just it's Councilperson Gorish, please, about the tree that.
It's Grant's Korsh.
I apologize. That tree is actually not the tree, I believe, that was referenced by Miles. It is much further, and it's actually on the steep slope farther away from the existing structure than what was stated.
Okay.
So it will not be affected. The canopy of the tree will not be affected either.
Okay.
And then Councilperson Hutchins, we would, if we were required to move the addition in 2 feet, we would adjust the design so that we would not affect the two windows on the basement level and the first level. So that, because we do not want to, destroy the architectural quality of the existing home, nor incur that cost. But it's more architectural, I guess. We could sort of absorb a little bit of that reduction in size.
Okay.
So I had worked with staff on the potential issues through design. We had talked about the wetlands, and we had talked about the side yard setback. Initially, we were saying that we're really just extending the existing building. I've had this happen before. These buildings are often skewed because they were done in 1927, almost 100 years ago, so they're slightly askew sometimes of the property lines. And sometimes the city allows you to extend, sometimes they don't. In this case, they're saying no, which is fine. We could work with that. What we are trying to do, though, is provide adequate storage for modern vehicles and for sort of outdoor things that a family has, per se, lawnmowers, kids' bikes, toys, whatever. So that is why the garage is getting a little larger. Plus, the building code requires extra distances between doors based on the braced wall panel code portion of the building code, which, once you add a 3-foot door, 2 9-foot garage doors, which are trying to be in keeping with the architecture, you get some extra walls, which come out to be approximately the 27 feet, or 28 feet. That could be slightly moved or refined, but it's a good dimension. So because the flat yard is what we're really looking at, we felt that what we're adding really is not affecting the slope or of the wetland. And then there is a tree line that sort of hides it from the wetland area.
So, Mr. Eckert, I just want to be clear, I'm trying to follow you. Are you okay with the denial of the one variance?
We could work with staff on that.
Okay.
It's not ideal, but it's fine.
Does anybody have any other questions of Mr. Eckert? I see none. Do you have anything else you'd like to offer? It sounds like your preference is for the variance to be approved.
Yes.
But if it weren't, you still can make that work.
Yes, I think what we've tried to do all along, which with every project that I have that's an addition, remodel, you have to comply with the city ordinance that has setbacks, buildable area, floor area ratio, and lot coverage, impervious or building. So we always intend to meet those. But I guess the side yard was sort of an in question, and the wetland was something that initially we didn't think was an issue because you have a big lot. And once you start looking at the survey, then you understand that, oh, that is a wetland setback, even though the lot is very flat.
Okay.
So, like I said, we always try to comply with codes, and I rarely recommend my clients going in for variances. This, we basically had to go in for variance because of those issues.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this request? You don't have to, but you may, if you want. You are the homeowners?
Yes.
If you could speak one at a time.
Yep.
And just give your name, and we know the address because you're the homeowners.
Yes. My name is Amy Anderson, and I'm the homeowner, so at 2821 Brookwood Terrace. So we moved into the neighborhood about 5 years ago and have really enjoyed our time. Our main objective with this project is to be able to park our vehicles in the garage. Currently, we park them in the backyard. So looking to repurpose that space where the cars currently are parked. You could see the parking pad on there. Move that into the garage so that we can get our vehicles in the garage and better utilize the outdoor space and repurpose that as family outdoor space. So we understand the variance, but are asking for your approval today.
Okay. Can you, as your architect, seem to say you could work with the variance not being approved, though?
Yeah, we acknowledge the concerns of our next door neighbor and hope that we can find a compromise here and are willing to compromise on the side yard. because we can reshuffle things, I think. I think the challenge is without going any further back, there's no way to get 2 cars in the garage right now.
Okay,
Yep.
okay,
I think she said it really well.
great.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Are there any other questions?
Okay.
I see none. Thanks
you.
for coming down. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? I see no one. And speak against? Yep. So did you figure out your computer thing? I know there was something that had to be done.
I'm Marsha Hagenson, and I live at 2825 Brookwood Terrace.
What was your last name again, please?
Hagenson, Hagenson. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I thought we were going to talk about the the continuance, but I'm
Well,
ready
you've
to
got
start
2
on this.
minutes, so you
Okay.
can do.
2 minutes?
You get 2 minutes. So
Here to talk?
yes.
Oh, wow. Well, I have a packet, and I put together the packet to address the issues that I saw with the planner. He's already given the context of where we are, and I wanted to point out that we have a hiking trail going in. It's Phase 1, and it's right behind the house, on the creek. Here's the house. It's a 5-bedroom, 4-bath house. And this is from the hiking trail in the back of the house. This is the house. I don't know what you're seeing. On the right-hand side,
Yep.
that's the house we're talking about. And this is the steep slope that's coming off of that. This is, the first picture is what I see now. And you can see that this will now be extended so that the tree I have, that's right here, that is 2/3 on my property and 1/3 on theirs, that would have to come out. Because I contacted Davy to come and look at it, they said it was a perfectly fine tree. And the bushes would have to come out. Here are the bushes, you can see that there's light screening, and I believe they're talking about, I don't know if they're talking about this tree, but there's another tree at the end of the driveway, a very large tree that would also have to come out. And then finally, this is my backyard that I've worked 40 years on. With these bushes coming out, I won't have any light. So it'll be a pretty set bulk. Oh, did I do it wrong? Oh.
Your time is up. Could you just summarize?
Well, yes, I will, but I want to show you, this is really the back of the house, a good picture of the back of their house, the driveway and how it comes out. This is the house, this is the tree that would have to come out, and it would extend pretty far back. Here is the creek now, right below our house, all the neighbors' homes, and this is the creek behind their house. And if you add 18 more feet or 8 feet to the bulk of that, you're going to have this overpowering the lot and overpowering the creek. And I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the hiking trail. I'm concerned that this didn't go before PDR, so that Park Board doesn't even know about this. They are well into this first phase of the trail that's going from Zenith to Morgan. And all of a sudden now, if you don't have Park Board involved in a review, they can't even comment on this. And so I was quite concerned. But I'm concerned as a neighbor too.
Yeah.
Because of the bulk and the problems with light.
Okay. So I'll just say quickly, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, you're not guaranteed light in your backyard.
Air.
There's supposed to be space between buildings and so forth, but if you've got like I have a shade garden in my backyard. If my neighbor did something, it would be, if they tore down their garage, I wouldn't have a shade garden anymore. So
Well, I'm
that's just the
concerned-
way
yeah.
it is.
I'm sorry. I'm concerned we're losing 2 trees in this whole process, 2 big ones.
Thank you for raising that issue. In terms of the park board, they are a separate entity. They do have to weigh in. And maybe I can get some clarification, Mr. Verkota, from that on when that happens in this process.
Chair Perry, members of the board, the park board is an adjacent property owner, would have received notice of this public hearing, but they don't have review authority over standard building permits in the city, even on properties adjacent to parkland.
Because they're adjacent. It's
Right.
not on.
Right, so, when there's a public hearing, they receive notice as other property owners do, but they don't review standard permits for projects.
Okay. So that's why the park board hasn't gotten
Okay.
involved. Because it may look like it's park board property, but it is not. It is adjacent to the park board property.
Well, yeah.
So
I'm-
I'm just telling you,
Yeah, I think the PDR process specifically states that they would send it to the park board.
and
Chair Perry?
Yes.
If I may interject, PDR is not used for residential additions, it's used for commercial projects. So PDR would never apply to a project like this.
okay.
Even though it borders their property, it's so big and it's so overwhelming and it's going to change the look. I don't know. Yeah. I only have 2 minutes, so.
Yeah.
I can't get through all of the rationale and the review of the merits of or demerits of the actual variance itself. And I've gone through it in quite detail, going through the state law and the requirements within the
Yep.
state law.
I'm sure you
So-
put a lot of time into it. I'm not disputing that. You do have other options going forward, depending on what this board does. They may vote for the variance, they may vote against the variance. We'll see what happens when I close the public hearing. And depending on what happens, you have options that you can utilize.
Right. I wanted to make sure that everything got in record because on an appeal process, you have to have it on record. You can't introduce new information. So that's what I was told by the city clerk when I called. So they
Yeah, so I
wanted,
think your information is in the public record now. Is that
but my
correct?
presentation really didn't get within because there's going to be ads and explanations.
But I'm sorry for asking a technical, that, Rachel, that document that we've been looking at is in the city's system now, isn't it?
Forgive me, this is the presentation from the planner, or this is, I don't believe that, if it wasn't in the staff report, it is not on LIMS yet. It usually post it after the meeting, because sometimes things
So it
change
can
last
still be
second.
added?
It can still be added, yes.
Great. So it can be added.
My question is, when we talk about, I have a couple of things. When we talk about public hearing, I'm wanting to make sure that, since I'm the public, that I get as much time to, or some time, a little bit more time, to discuss this, rather than just developer comments. I mean, I'm the public, and it's impacting me and all my neighbors. We have 4 people that have written letters that want to have this rejected, these 2 variants
Okay.
rejected. And I've got 2 historic properties within 350 feet. We have all lived with this.
Yeah. So I can imagine you're not happy with what's happening, and I know you put a lot of time into it. I appreciate that as well. The process that we're following here, and we're now having a rather lengthy dialogue,
Yeah.
not even about the project, but the process that we're following is due process that has been given to me by the city attorney of what I need to do to have a public hearing. So we're following the rules of the city.
May I just say that nowhere in all the documents that I've looked at and all the website and the explanations of the land use process, do they ever spill any of that out for the public, so we don't know? I put a lot of time and effort to make this presentation to show you what I believed is going on and taking pictures. But there's no guidance as to what I believe the planner told me 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, I apologize, there's been some miscommunication. As I said, I appreciate your situation, but I'm following the due process rules that the city attorney has given me. So.
They should be published somewhere so that we
Yeah.
know what to do.
You know what? You're making a great point, and I will carry that back to the city attorney. Because I can't change the rules by myself.
But if you don't know the rules, how am I supposed to?
You've made that point very clear. Thank you.
Chair Perry, can I ask a question of the applicant?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Big point of contention today from the neighbors is you're cutting down trees. You cutting down trees?
No.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I ask a follow-up thought, to Chair Hutchins, sorry, to Commissioner Hutchins' comment? I'm very confused, though, because there has been a noted statement that a very large mature tree is in the actual driveway. It's not listed on the plot plan. The only one that I could see was the 24-inch oak that was listed on the sight line. Is there a large tree that's in that driveway?
So before things get totally out of hand.
Yes, we understand.
Let's just answer that question,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then we're going to close the public hearing.
That's fine.
That tree was a diseased ash tree that has since been removed because it was dead. So the tree in the current driveway that you saw in the
Yep.
old picture with the trampoline no longer exists. That was taken down about 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
There's a tree on the side that with the 2 feet variance, we're hoping to preserve. The only thing that would need to come down is there's like evergreen that's on our property.
Thank you. All right.
Small of it.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this? I see no one. Let's close the public hearing. Board comment? Yes, Board Member Grand-Scorch.
I'm concerned about that the park board is planning on adjacent property a walking path that may or may not have an impact on this property, or I guess I'm just concerned that they never responded back to us. They have a lot going on in their plate, but that's a common occurrence, that just because it's adjacent and not on it, that there would be no requirement for them to sign off on this?
I would defer to Mr. Verkota. My experience has been that if someone is encroaching onto their property, they respond. Otherwise, they do not respond. That's been my experience. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Hutchins.
I think the city got it right, and I'd like to move staff findings.
Staff findings have been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's seconded by Mr. Ingram. And with that, I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Board Member Callahan.
Nay.
Eicholtz.
Aye.
Grand-Scorch.
Nay.
Hutchins.
Aye.
Ingram.
Aye.
Smikarova.
Aye.
Wang.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes and 2 nays.
So that motion passes. What that means is this board is granting the variances as requested. including the denial. Okay? Thanks. Including the denial. And you can talk to staff about what your options are going forward. All right. Thanks. We got through that. I hope everybody feels okay with the process. I will, ma'am, I will take your comment about the time back to the city attorney's office and ask them about that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I would ask if there's any update from the senior staff.
Chair Perry, members of the board, as you may be aware, there are 2 board members up for reappointment and 2 vacancies that we are looking to fill. And so we did have an open application period for those seats. We did get more applications than needed, so we will be doing an interview process. Looking to get those scheduled, I believe, late this month or early in November, with the idea of moving those through the approval process late in the year here and getting those new members seated early in 2026.
Okay, any questions of staff?
Who's up for reappointment?
I believe that was Wang and Callahan.
Okay.
So you have 4 vacancies then?
2 vacancies and 2 reappointments.
Okay. So you consider,
So,
I'm leaving. So
correct, that would be a vacancy.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, indicate. I think I said, what I said to you is you could talk to staff about what your options are going forward, not in this meeting.
No, we were talking about, we were talking about the time limit or the instructions for notices and the discrepancies, and you said we would talk about that. All right, I tested.
I said you could probably, given your amount of time, I said you could do one or the other.
So the staff told me I could talk about it. I don't
You were
know.
given an option, to talk about one or the other, and you chose to talk about the variance. You only get 2 minutes to talk.
Hearing is closed.
That was not clear to me, and I don't know.
Okay. You know what? I'm happy to talk to you about after this meeting, so I can explain how the meeting works, if that will make you happy. Will that make you happy? Okay. So all in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.